All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into Watergate.
Ooh, Watergate.
A scandal that, it's infamous.
It is.
It goes way beyond just a simple break-in.
Oh, yeah.
And it gets right to the heart of American politics.
It really does. And you've brought a lot of sources today.
I agree.
We've got court reports, White House transcripts.
Hmm.
We've even got the
The Wikipedia rabbit hole.
that Wikipedia rabbit hole that we all love.
We all love it. Sometimes it's accurate.
Sometimes.
But seriously, the goal today is to kind of get past, like, those oversimplified versions of Watergate
Right.
that you hear about,
Mhm.
and to really understand its lasting impact.
Right.
And we're talking about the role of the press, government accountability, public trust. I mean,
Absolutely.
the whole nine
You know,
yards.
even decades later, there are still things to unpack.
Oh, for sure.
Did you know that even after all this time, we're still debating the true motive
Yeah.
behind the Watergate break-in?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that keeps it so fascinating.
Absolutely.
Speaking of fascinating,
Yes.
we have some juicy details to cover.
Lay it on me.
Okay, have you ever heard of Martha Mitchell
Martha Mitchell, of course.
and her alleged kidnapping?
Yes.
It sounds like, honestly,
It's crazy.
something out of a spy thriller.
It really is. Her story is wild.
Oh my gosh. And it gets right to the heart of the Nixon administration's
Yes.
attempts to control the narrative.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the mystery
Yes.
of the 18-and-a-half-minute gap
Oh, yes.
in the Nixon tapes.
Oh, we've got to get into that.
Was it an accident? Was it a
Yeah.
deliberate cover-up?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll dig into all of it.
I love it.
So, what's interesting to me
What's that?
is that this Watergate break-in was initially dismissed
Yes.
as a third-rate burglary.
A third-rate burglary. That's what they called it.
But it quickly became clear that this was just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah.
The first crack
Yes.
in this massive wall of corruption
Uh-huh.
and abuse of power.
You got it.
So for those who might need a little refresher,
Okay.
let's set the stage a little bit.
All right.
June 17th, 1972.
Okay.
5 burglars
5 burglars.
are caught breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters
Right.
at the Watergate Hotel.
At the Watergate, yeah.
And these burglars are quickly connected
Yes.
to the Committee for the Re-election of the President,
Otherwise known as
CRP,
CRP.
which was, of course, working to get Nixon reelected.
Of course.
And Nixon, despite mounting evidence,
Right.
insisted on his innocence,
Yes, he did.
famously declaring,
Oh, this is a good one.
I am not a crook,
The famous line, right?
in a televised address to the nation.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine the audacity?
But those denials
Hmm.
really just fueled public suspicion.
Of course, the more he denied it,
Yeah.
the more it looked like he had something to hide.
Exactly. You can't
Right.
put out a fire with gasoline.
Yeah,
Fire
exactly.
makes things worse.
Yeah.
But what really turned the tide was this relentless investigation
Yes.
by 2 reporters.
Just two.
From the Washington Post,
Mm-hmm.
Carl Bernstein
Bernstein.
and Bob Woodward.
Woodward and Bernstein, the dynamic duo.
Those guys were like dogs with a bone.
They really were.
They followed every lead.
Every lead.
They chased down every source.
Uh-huh.
They refused to let go.
They were relentless.
And they had a secret weapon,
Ooh, a secret weapon. What is it?
an anonymous source,
Ooh, I love it.
known only as Deep Throat,
Deep Throat. Who could it be?
gave them crucial information
Wow.
about the cover-up.
So Deep Throat, who was it?
Well, Deep Throat, who we now know was Mark Felt,
Mark Felt.
who was a high-ranking FBI official,
Wow. Right in the heart of it.
played a pivotal role
He did.
in exposing this web of lies
Uh-huh.
and deceit
Yeah.
surrounding Watergate.
Wow. I mean, talk about a classic example
Right.
of investigative journalism.
At its
best, these reporters.
they risk everything,
Everything.
their careers, their reputation,
Mm-hmm.
everything, to uncover the truth.
That's dedication.
And their work had a profound impact
It did.
on the public's perception
Right.
of the scandal.
It went from, what, seemingly a minor break-in?
Right, exactly.
To a full-blown, like,
Constitutional crisis.
a constitutional crisis. Exactly.
All right, let's talk money.
Okay, let's talk money.
Because as this investigation deepened,
Yeah.
it became clear
Uh-huh.
that there was a lot more to this break-in
Okay.
than just a botched attempt
Right.
at political espionage.
Okay.
There was a trail of money,
There's always a trail of money.
and it led all the way to the top.
Uh-oh.
So the investigation uncovered this complex web
Mm.
of financial transactions
Right.
linking the burglars to the CRP
Right. Back to the committee.
and ultimately to the White House.
The White House itself.
And this wasn't just like small-time donations. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Wow.
slush funds, secret accounts,
Right.
the whole,
The whole shady underbelly.
shady
It's a
financial
boss.
underworld of politics.
You got it.
And what's interesting
Yeah.
is that this money trail revealed a pattern of behavior
Okay.
that went far beyond just funding a break-in.
Okay.
It exposed this culture of corruption
Right.
within the Nixon administration,
Uh-huh.
like a willingness to use illegal means
Right.
to achieve their political ends.
I mean, this wasn't just about winning an election.
It was about maintaining power
At any cost.
at any cost.
And that's where it gets really scary.
Yeah, it gets really chilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
This wasn't just a political scandal.
No.
It was an assault on the very foundations of American democracy.
Absolutely.
Now, things took another dramatic turn
Okay.
when the existence of a voice-activated taping system
Oh, my.
in the Oval Office
In the Oval Office, a taping system.
came to light.
How did that come out?
It was during
Okay.
the Senate Watergate hearings.
Oh, wow.
It was revealed.
So they had no idea.
Nobody knew.
Wow.
And imagine the shockwaves
Right.
that went through Washington
Yeah.
when this revelation hit.
Everyone's scrambling.
Right, because suddenly there was this potential
Yeah.
for concrete evidence
Right.
in Nixon's own voice
Oh, boy.
of his involvement in the cover-up.
The smoking gun.
You can't overstate the significance of these tapes.
No.
They were like a ticking time bomb,
Yeah.
threatening to blow the whole scandal wide open.
Absolutely.
And Nixon, of course, realizing the danger,
Oh, of course.
he fought tooth and nail
Yeah.
to keep those tapes secret.
Right.
He claimed executive privilege,
Executive privilege, of course.
arguing that releasing them would violate the separation of powers
Uh-huh.
and undermine national security,
I mean, that's a big claim.
right?
Yeah.
So this led to a constitutional showdown
Oh, wow.
between the president and the courts,
Okay.
a battle that went all the way to the Supreme Court.
The highest court in the land.
And in a landmark decision,
Mm-hmm.
the Supreme Court ruled against Nixon,
Wow.
ordering him to hand over the tapes.
So the court said, no, you've got to hand them over.
You have to.
Wow.
This decision set a precedent
It did.
for limiting presidential power
Right.
and reaffirmed this principle
Yeah.
that no one, not even the president,
Not even
is above the law.
That's a powerful statement.
It was a pivotal moment
It was.
in American history.
Yeah.
So the tapes were eventually released.
Okay.
And while they didn't contain, like, a smoking gun,
Right.
that explicitly proved Nixon ordered the break-in,
Uh-huh.
they did reveal a pattern of behavior that was very damning.
Okay, so it wasn't like a direct order, but it showed
It showed him
involvement.
participating in these discussions about the cover-up,
Okay.
approving hush money payments,
Wow.
authorizing efforts to obstruct justice.
Obstruct justice. I mean,
Oh.
that's big.
And it was those tapes,
Yeah.
more than anything else,
Yeah.
that sealed Nixon's fate.
His fate was sealed.
He was facing impeachment
Right.
and almost certain removal from office.
Right.
So he chose to resign,
He resigned.
becoming the only U.S. president to ever do so.
Wow, only one?
Okay, now let's delve into one of the most infamous episodes
Okay.
in the tapes saga.
Right.
That mysterious 18-and-a-half-minute gap
Oh, yes, the gap.
in a recording of a conversation
Right.
between Nixon and his chief of staff,
Okay.
H.R. Haldeman,
Coldman.
just days after the Watergate break-in.
Oh, wow. So this is a crucial conversation.
This is a key conversation.
There's a gap.
And that gap,
Right.
right in the middle of this highly sensitive discussion,
Uh-huh.
has been a source of endless speculation, conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories, of course.
What was said during those missing minutes?
Yeah.
Who was responsible for erasing them?
Right.
And the official explanation,
Okay.
offered by Rosemary Woods,
Rosemary Woods.
who was Nixon's personal secretary,
Okay.
was that she accidentally erased the tape,
Accidentally.
transcribing it.
Inscribing it.
She even demonstrated how she might have done it,
Oh, really?
creating what became known as
Wait for it.
the Rosemary stretch.
Rosemary stretch. I mean, come on.
But that explanation
Yeah.
was met with widespread skepticism
Of course.
and technical analysis conducted by a panel of experts,
Right.
debunked her theory.
So they said, no, that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
Okay.
And they concluded
Yeah.
that the erasure was deliberate
Deliberate.
and it required multiple operations
Multiple operations. So somebody went in there
on the tape
and
recorder
was like, let's get rid of this.
to do this.
Wow.
And the report also ruled out tampering or copying. So they
That-
confirmed that the tape was the original recording
The original.
and that the erasure was intentional.
Intentional.
This reinforced the suspicion
Yes.
that something incriminating had been removed
Right.
from that tape,
Yeah.
further fueling this belief that there was a cover-up
At the highest level.
at the highest levels.
Wow.
And despite numerous attempts to recover that lost audio
Right.
using all kinds of advanced techniques,
Right.
the content of those 18-and-a-half minutes
It's gone.
remains a mystery.
A mystery.
It's like a tantalizing hole
Yeah.
in our understanding of Watergate.
Wow.
And this gap has become this symbol
Of the secrecy.
and this seat that surrounded Watergate.
Yeah.
It's a tangible reminder of the lengths
they went
that the
to.
administration was willing to go
Yeah.
to protect themselves
Right.
and to obstruct justice.
Yeah.
It's also a reminder that even in this age of technology, where we assume everything's recorded and preserved,
Right. It's all on the crowd.
right,
It's all there.
information can be manipulated and concealed.
Right.
The truth can be elusive,
Yeah.
and sometimes the most important parts of the story
The most important parts.
remain hidden.
They stay hidden.
So, I think it's a reminder that we need to be vigilant
We do.
in our pursuit of truth question assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
Demand accountability
Yes.
from those in power,
Absolutely.
because the 18-and-a-half-minute gap stands as a warning,
Why?
a reminder that those in power will sometimes go to great lengths
Right.
to protect themselves
Yeah.
and their secrets,
And their secrets.
even if it means subverting
subverting
the very principles of justice and democracy.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
And,
yeah. Let's take a look.
let's look at Watergate
Okay.
from kind of a global
The
perspective.
global perspective.
This scandal happened on American soil,
Right.
but it had ripple effects around the world,
Of course.
shaping perceptions of the U.S.,
Yeah.
influencing international relations
Uh-huh.
in really profound
In
ways.
profound ways, yeah.
So it's a reminder even seemingly domestic events
Right.
can have global repercussions.
They can.
Different countries and cultures will
Autonomy.
interpret these events through their own unique lenses,
Their own lens.
shaped by their own political systems,
Yeah.
their own historical experiences,
Right.
and their strategic interests.
That makes sense.
So,
We've got a lot to unhack here.
We do.
When we're looking at Watergate.
we do, from a global perspective.
From a global perspective, it's fascinating. It's interesting, thinking about these tapes
Yeah,
and the length that the Nixon administration went to
right.
to hide the truth.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how Watergate had this ripple effect
Okay.
on ethical standards, especially for lawyers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It makes sense that a scandal involving lawyers covering things up
Yeah.
would lead to some soul searching
Some soul searching.
within the legal profession.
For sure.
But, what specifically changed?
Well, I think Watergate really tarnished the image of lawyers.
Okay.
The public saw them involved in obstruction of justice.
Right.
And it really sparked a crisis of confidence.
Yeah.
And so the American Bar Association, they realized they needed to act
Okay.
to restore public trust.
So they didn't just sweep it under the rug.
No, they didn't.
What kind of actions did they take?
Well, they launched these two major reforms.
Okay.
First, they completely revamped their ethical guidelines.
Okay.
They had this old model code of professional responsibility, which was seen as too vague,
Okay.
too easy to manipulate,
Right.
and they replaced it with the model rules of professional conduct.
New rules.
New rules.
What was so different about them?
Well, these new rules were much more detailed
Okay.
and rigorous, and they really emphasized a lawyer's duty
Okay.
to the client, to the court, and to the public good.
Okay.
It wasn't enough to just avoid breaking the law.
Right.
You had to uphold this higher ethical standard.
Less wiggle room for shady dealings.
Exactly, less wiggle room.
What was the second big change?
The second big change, they made it mandatory
Okay.
for all law students to take a course on professional responsibility.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about punishing bad behavior,
Right.
but preventing it in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
Shifting the culture of the legal profession
Mm-hmm.
towards ethical obligation
Uh-huh.
and public service.
And public service, exactly.
It's interesting. Watergate served as this huge wake-up call.
It was a wake-up call.
A stark reminder that anyone, even those upholding the law,
Yes.
can be corrupted by power.
Corrupted by power, for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the impact on the legal world.
Yeah.
But what about the long-term political consequences of Watergate?
Oh, absolutely.
It feels like something that would reshape
Totally.
the political landscape for years to come.
It really did. You have a sitting president resigning in disgrace.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much more seismic than that.
Right.
In terms of political impact.
So what kind of specific changes?
Well, it ushered in this wave of electoral change.
Okay.
The Democrats, who were already gaining momentum,
Uh-huh.
made huge gains in the 1974 midterm elections.
Okay.
And a lot of these newly elected members were dubbed
Oh, I like this.
Watergate babies.
Watergate baby.
Watergate baby.
Great name.
It really captures the feeling that this was
Yeah.
the new generation of politicians
Right.
coming in on the heels of this massive scandal.
Absolutely.
What did this new generation actually do?
Well, they were determined to clean up Washington.
Okay.
They pushed for a slew of reforms to prevent future abuses of power.
Okay.
One of the most significant was campaign finance reform. Okay, campaign finance reform.
Remember all that shady money we talked about,
Yeah.
the illegal contributions, the slush funds,
Uh-huh.
Congress passed new laws
Okay.
to regulate campaign donations,
Okay.
making them more transparent
Right.
and limiting the influence of wealthy donors.
Less money sloshing around in the shadows.
Less money in the shadows.
Makes sense.
Less opportunity for shady backroom deals.
What else?
They also strengthened the Freedom of Information Act,
Okay.
known as FOA.
OOA.
This gives the public the right to access government documents
Right.
and information.
All about transparency.
Transparency.
You can't hold people accountable if you don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. You need that transparency.
Transparency is key.
It's key, and Watergate demonstrated that.
Right.
And it led to a stronger FOA empowering citizens.
So campaign finance reform,
Uh-huh.
a stronger FOA.
Yep.
What other changes came about?
There was also a big push for ethical accountability from government officials.
Makes sense.
The Ethics in Government Act, passed in 1978,
Okay.
established new guidelines for financial disclosure.
Okay.
So key officials had to publicly report their income, their assets and liabilities.
So if you're working for the public,
Right.
the public has a right to know about your finances.
Exactly.
To make sure there are no conflicts of interest.
Transparency.
Transparency again.
It wasn't just about legal requirements. It was a shift in public expectations.
Okay.
Things like releasing tax returns,
Right.
even though it wasn't legally required at the time, became the norm.
Interesting.
It was about rebuilding trust
Right.
after that erosion of public faith in government
Yeah.
that was caused by Watergate.
So Watergate didn't just bring down a president.
No.
It triggered this wave of reform.
A wave of reforms.
That changed the way American politics operates.
At least for a while.
At least for a while, did they achieve what they set out to do?
That's a question that's still being debated today. Some people argue that these reforms have had a positive impact,
Okay.
making the system more transparent and accountable.
Uh-huh.
Others argue that they haven't gone far enough.
Okay.
And that money still holds too much sway in politics.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
But there's no doubt that Watergate was a pivotal moment
It was.
that forced a reckoning
A reckoning.
with how power is wielded in America.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of power,
Okay.
let's zoom out a little bit
All right.
and look at how Watergate changed
Okay.
the world's perception of the United States.
Okay, so not just domestically, but globally.
Globally.
It's fascinating to see
Yeah.
how this very American scandal
Right.
resonated across the globe.
Yeah.
Here you have the leader of the free world
Right.
embroiled in a scandal that forced him to resign in disgrace.
Yeah.
It was a huge blow to America's image.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right.
It must have been a propaganda goldmine
Oh, yeah.
for America's rivals like the Soviet Union.
For sure.
Right. See, they would say
Right.
their system is just as flawed as ours.
Exactly. The Soviets used Watergate to highlight what they saw
Yeah.
as the hypocrisy and the flaws
Yeah.
of Western democracy.
Yeah.
They depicted it as a sign of America's decline,
Okay.
of its moral bankruptcy.
But did it actually change?
It's hard to say definitively,
Yeah.
but it certainly created this sense of uncertainty and vulnerability.
Okay.
You know, some world leaders expressed concern
Okay.
that a U.S. preoccupied with its internal problems
Right.
might retreat from its global commitments.
We saw that in some of the statements that we looked at.
We did.
Right. The unnamed Kenyan official worried that Watergate distracted Nixon
Right.
from focusing on Africa's needs.
Right. And we saw...
And Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew feared it would weaken U.S. involvement with Southeast Asia, potentially destabilizing the region.
And these concerns really highlight
Yeah.
the interconnected nature
Right.
of domestic and foreign policy.
Yeah.
Events on the home front can have ripple effects
Yeah.
across the globe, shaping perceptions
Uh-huh.
and influencing international relations in profound ways.
Okay, so Watergate wasn't just an American problem.
No.
It had international implications. It kind of shook the world's faith in American leadership
Yeah.
and raised questions about the
Right.
future of American power.
Yeah.
But did everyone see it as a negative?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
In Japan, Prime Minister Takeo Miki
Okay.
actually saw Watergate as a testament
Oh, wow.
to the strength of the American Constitution
Okay.
and the importance of checks and balances.
Interesting.
He contrasted it with his own country's political system,
Uh-huh.
where one party had held power for decades,
Right.
and he called for greater accountability and transparency.
Interesting. So in a way,
Yeah.
Watergate was both a cautionary tale
Cautionary
and a source of inspiration
and a source of
for other
inspiration.
democracies.
Precisely, it was a stark reminder that no democracy is immune to corruption,
Right.
and that constant vigilance is needed
Yeah.
to protect democratic institutions and values.
Uh-huh.
But it also demonstrated that even in the face of a major scandal,
Yeah.
a democracy could hold its leaders accountable and emerge stronger.
Okay, so let's kind of shift gears back
Okay.
to one of the most intriguing aspects of Watergate.
Oh, right.
This enduring mystery
Yes.
surrounding the motive behind the break-in.
The motive, we're still trying to figure that out.
Despite all we know about the scandal,
I know.
the why remains elusive.
It's true. We have so many details,
Yeah.
so much evidence, but the true purpose of that break-in at the DNC headquarters
Yeah.
remains a topic of debate among historians.
So let's examine some of the most common theories.
Okay, let's do it.
The one we hear a lot
Yeah.
is that they were looking for evidence
Okay.
linking Cuban funding
Okay.
to Democratic campaigns.
The Castro connection.
The Castro connection.
That's right. It was based on testimony from some of the burglars
Okay.
who claimed they were told to look for documents
Right.
connecting the Democrats to Fidel Castro's regime.
Right.
In the context of the Cold War,
Yeah.
it was a way to discredit the Democrats
Right.
and paint them as communist sympathizers.
That makes sense in that political climate.
Right.
Painting your opponent as a communist was a pretty effective tactic.
Back then, yeah.
But is there any hard evidence to support this theory?
That's the problem.
Okay.
Despite the claims, no such proof was ever found.
Okay.
Some historians believe it was just a cover sign,
Okay.
a way to deflect attention from the real motive.
Okay, so the Castro connection
Yeah.
remains a bit shaky.
A little shaky.
What are good with the other theory?
Well, another popular one
Yeah.
focuses on Larry O'Brien,
Okay.
the chairman of the DNC.
Okay.
The theory suggests that the break-in was part of a broader effort to find damaging information on O'Brien.
Okay.
Something that could discredit him
Right.
and weaken the Democratic Party.
O'Brien was a major figure in the Democratic Party.
He was.
Taking him down would have been
A significant blow.
a significant blow to the Democrats, but why target him specifically?
Well, there's a couple of angles. One is O'Brien's previous work for Howard Hughes.
Okay.
The reclusive billionaire,
Yeah.
Hughes was notorious for his secretive dealings.
Right.
So there was speculation the Nixon administration was looking for evidence
Okay.
of financial impropriety
Right.
or illegal activities involving O'Brien and Hughes.
So maybe it was about exploiting this potential connection
Yeah,
to a controversial figure.
right.
Right. A way to kind of taint O'Brien's reputation,
Yeah.
raise doubts about his integrity.
Classic political mudslinging.
Classic political mudslinging. All right.
But there's another angle as well.
Okay.
O'Brien was a close confidant
Okay.
of Senator Edward Kennedy,
Right.
who was seen as a potential challenger to Nixon in future elections.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the break-in could have also been an attempt to gather intelligence
Right.
on Kennedy's inner circle.
Uh-huh.
Maybe find something damaging
Right.
that could be used against him down the line.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder
Yeah.
that Watergate wasn't just about winning the 1972 election. It was
Right.
also about consolidating power
Uh-huh.
and eliminating potential threats
Right.
to Nixon's presidency in the long term.
So we have all these various theories,
We do.
each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Strengths and weaknesses.
But the definitive answer
It remains elusive.
remains elusive. It's like a historical jigsaw puzzle
It is.
with a few key pieces missing.
Exactly. And that's part of
And that's what keeps it so fascinating.
it. Keeps it fascinating.
It forces us to kind of grapple with ambiguity,
Right.
to examine the evidence,
Yeah.
and draw our own conclusion.
And draw our own conclusions.
It's a reminder that history is rarely neat and tidy.
It's messy.
Right.
Yeah.
And often leaves us with more questions than answers.
More questions than answers. Absolutely.
Okay, let's dive into another aspect of Watergate
Okay.
that often gets overshadowed.
All right.
The role of Martha Mitchell.
Oh, Martha Mitchell.
She's a figure who deserves more attention
She does.
than she typically gets
Yeah,
in the retelling of this story.
absolutely.
So she was the wife
Okay.
of John Mitchell,
John Mitchell?
who was Nixon's attorney general,
Wow, okay.
a man deeply involved in the Watergate cover-up.
Right at the center of it.
But Martha was no shrinking violet.
Oh, no.
She was known for her outspoken personality,
Okay.
her sharp wit,
Uh-huh.
and her tendency to share her opinions,
Oh, I like her already.
even if they contradicted the official line.
Oh, boy.
And that's precisely what made her such a problem.
A problem for the Nixon
For
administration.
the Nixon administration,
Yeah.
they saw her as a loose cannon,
Oh, yeah.
someone who could potentially derail their carefully crafted narrative
Right.
and expose the truth about the Watergate cover-up.
She was a threat.
They tried to discredit her,
Of course they did.
portray her as unstable
Right.
and unreliable.
The classic smear campaign.
But as we've learned,
Yeah.
many of her claims,
Mm-hmm.
which were initially dismissed as,
Right.
the ramblings of a disgruntled wife,
Right, just a scorned woman.
were later corroborated by evidence.
She was right all along.
So her willingness to speak out,
Yeah.
to challenge the official line, made her a threat.
A threat.
To the Nixon administration.
Yeah.
They tried to silence her.
Of course.
To control the narrative.
Right.
And keep her from sharing what she knew.
They didn't want her talking.
And they didn't just ignore her.
No.
They actively worked to suppress her voice.
How so?
There are credible accounts,
Okay.
including her own,
Right.
of her being held against her will,
Oh, wow.
sedated, and prevented from speaking to the press.
They kidnapped her?
Essentially,
Wow.
this alleged kidnapping,
Right.
while never fully investigated
Wow.
or prosecuted,
That's unbelievable.
speak volumes about the Nixon administration's ruthlessness
Absolutely.
and their disregard for basic human rights.
It's chilling.
They weren't just trying to manage a political crisis.
No.
They were engaging in this systematic effort
Right.
to suppress dissent
To silence anyone who disagreed.
and to control the flow of information.
Wow, that's scary.
And it speaks to Martha Mitchell's courage
It does.
that she continued to speak out.
Yeah.
Even after experiencing this kind of intimidation,
She was brave.
she refused to be silenced,
She stood up for what she believed in.
even when it put her at risk.
Wow.
Her story is a reminder
A reminder that,
even in the face of powerful forces,
yes,
individuals can make a difference.
they can.
By speaking out, by refusing to be silenced. Martha Mitchell played a significant role
She
in
did.
bringing the truth about Watergate to light.
It's inspiring.
And it highlights the importance of listening to dissenting voices.
Dissenting voices, even when
Even
they're
the
marginalized or dismissed.
marginalized or dismissed is unreliable.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the truth comes from unexpected sources,
It does.
from those who are willing to challenge the status quo
Yeah.
and speak truth to power.
Truth to power, exactly.
And Martha's story also reminds us that
yeah.
even in the midst of these large-scale political events, there are personal stories,
Right.
individual lives
Visual lives.
that are impacted,
Yeah.
often in profound and tragic ways.
It's a human story.
She was caught between
Yeah.
her loyalty to her husband
Right.
and her belief that he was involved in something deeply wrong.
Right. A moral dilemma.
And it's a reminder of the human cost of these kinds of scandals.
It is. It's easy to get caught up
Right.
in the political machinations
Yeah.
and the legal battles.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember
Yeah.
that these events involve real people.
Real people.
With real lives and real emotions.
And Martha Mitchell's story is a testament to that.
It is.
Okay, let's move on
Okay.
to another critical aspect of the Watergate saga,
All right.
the presidential tapes
The tapes.
and the constitutional crisis that they triggered.
Oh, yeah. This is big.
So the existence of a voice-activated taping system
Right. In the Oval Office.
in the Oval Office, which was revealed during the Senate Watergate hearings,
Right.
was a bombshell
It was.
that fundamentally changed the course of the scandal.
It changed everything.
Imagine the shock waves that went through Washington
Oh, yeah.
when news of the tapes broke.
People must have been freaking out.
Suddenly there was this potential
Yeah.
for concrete evidence
In Nixon's own words.
in Nixon's own voice
Oh,
of his involvement in the cover-up.
that's huge.
It was a game changer.
A game changer.
The tapes became the focal point
Yeah.
of the
Oh,
investigation,
of course.
with everyone focused on getting their hands on them
Yeah.
and deciphering their contents.
What did they say?
Right? They held the potential to either exonerate Nixon
Right.
or confirm his guilt,
High stakes.
and Nixon, realizing the danger
Yeah.
that they posed to his presidency,
Right.
fought tooth and nail.
To keep them secret.
To keep them secret, he claimed executive privilege,
Executive privilege, of course.
arguing that releasing them
Right.
would violate the separation of powers and undermine national security.
That's a big claim.
And this led to this high-stakes legal battle,
Oh, wow.
this constitutional showdown
Right.
between the executive and judicial branches.
Two branches of government going head to head.
And the Supreme Court
What's Freeman?
ultimately ruled against Nixon,
Wow.
ordering him to hand over the tapes.
So the court said, "Yup, you got to hand him over."
You have to hand him over.
Wow.
And this decision was a landmark moment in American legal history.
Yeah.
It affirmed that no one,
No one.
not even the president, is above the law,
Wow, what a statement.
and that the demands of justice
Yeah.
outweigh claims of executive privilege.
Powerful.
It was this powerful statement about the limits of presidential power
Right.
and the importance of the rule of law.
A rule of law, absolutely.
So the tapes were eventually released.
Okay, and what did they say?
And while they didn't contain a smoking gun,
Right.
that explicitly proved that Nixon ordered the break-in,
Okay.
they did reveal a pattern of behavior
Okay.
that was very damning.
So not a direct order, but...
It showed him participating
Yeah.
in discussions about the cover-up,
Uh.
approving hush money payments,
Uh-huh.
authorizing efforts to obstruct justice.
I mean, that's pretty bad.
And it was those tapes,
Yeah.
more than anything else,
More than anything.
that sealed Nixon's fate.
Sealed his fate.
Okay, now let's delve into
All right.
one of the most infamous episodes
Okay.
in the tapes saga.
Okay.
That mysterious 18-and-a-half-minute gap
Oh, the gap.
in a recording of a conversation
Right.
between Nixon and his chief of staff,
Okay.
H.R. Haldeman,
Oh, didn't it?
just days after the Watergate break-in.
Oh, wow. So this is a crucial conversation.
This is a crucial conversation.
Yeah.
And that gap,
Right.
right in the middle of this highly sensitive discussion,
Yeah.
has been a source of endless speculation,
Endless speculation.
conspiracy theories,
Conspiracy theory.
what was said during those missing minutes,
Yeah.
who was responsible for erasing them.
Right.
The official explanation,
Okay.
offered by Rosemary Woods,
Rosemary Woods again.
Nixon's personal secretary,
Okay.
was that she accidentally erased the tape
Accidentally.
while transcribing
While
it.
transcribing it. Come on.
But that explanation was met with widespread skepticism.
Of course it was.
And the technical analysis
Yeah.
conducted by a panel of experts
Right.
debunked her theory,
They said, no way.
concluding that the erasure was deliberate
Deliberate.
and required multiple operations on the tape recorder.
So someone went in there.
Someone went in there on purpose
and was like, let's get rid of this.
to do this.
Wow.
And the report also ruled out tampering or copying.
Okay, so it was the original.
So it confirmed that the tape was the original recording
Wow.
and that the erasure was intentional.
Intentional. Wow.
This reinforced the suspicion that something incriminating
Right.
had been removed from the tape,
Of course.
further fueling this belief that there was a cover-up
At the highest levels.
at the highest levels.
Wow.
And despite numerous attempts to recover that lost audio
Uh-huh.
using all kinds of advanced techniques,
Right.
the content of those 18-and-a-half minutes
It's gone.
remains a mystery.
A mystery to this day.
It's like a tantalizing hole
Yeah.
in our understanding of Watergate.
We'll never know what was said.
And this gap has become this symbol
Yeah.
of the secrecy and the deceit
The secrecy and a
that surrounded Watergate.
Yeah.
It's a tangible reminder of the lengths
The lengths they went to.
that the administration was willing to go to
Yeah.
protect themselves and to obstruct justice.
To obstruct justice.
It's also a reminder that even in this age of technology,
Right. Where we think everything is recorded.
where we assume everything is recorded and preserved,
Yeah.
information can be manipulated and concealed,
Manipulated and concealed.
the truth can be elusive.
It can.
And sometimes the most important parts of the story
Most important parts.
remain hidden.
Lost
But do
or
this-
delivery.
So it's a reminder that we need to be vigilant
We do.
in our pursuit of truth,
Absolutely.
to question assumptions,
Yeah.
and to demand accountability
Accountability.
from those in power.
Those in power.
Because that 18-and-a-half-minute gap stands as a warning,
A warning.
a reminder that those in power will sometimes go to great lengths
Right.
to protect themselves and their secrets,
Their secrets.
even if it means subverting
Yeah.
the very principles of justice and democracy.
Wow. That's powerful.
And,
Let's shift gears a moment.
let's look at Watergate from kind of a global perspective.
Okay. A global perspective.
Right?
Yeah.
This scandal happened on American soil,
It did.
but it had ripple effects around the world.
Of course.
It shaped perceptions of the U.S.,
Absolutely.
influencing international relations
It did.
in profound ways.
Profound way.
So it's a reminder that even seemingly domestic events
Right.
can have global repercussions,
Yeah.
and that different countries and cultures
Different cultures.
will interpret these events
Yeah.
through their own unique lenses. We were just talking about how a domestic event like Watergate could have such a big impact on the global stage.
Right. It's fascinating to see how this American scandal resonated all over the world.
So did any of the reactions from other countries really stand out to you?
Well, we have some interesting quotes from different world leaders.
Okay.
And they really show how differently people viewed Watergate.
Okay.
Take Chinese Premier Zhu Enlai, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of downplayed the scandal's effect on U.S.-China relations.
Oh, interesting. So he didn't really want to, pile onto the scandal.
It seems that way. Remember, this was during a time when the U.S. and China were trying to improve relations.
Right.
And Zhu Enlai was very focused on the bigger picture,
Yeah.
strengthening ties with the
In
U.S.,
that sense.
not getting bogged down in their internal political drama.
Yeah, I see how, from his perspective,
Right.
a stable U.S., even one dealing with a scandal,
Mm-hmm.
was preferable to an unpredictable one.
Absolutely.
So did other leaders kind of share that perspective?
Not necessarily. We came across the statement from Thailand's Prime Minister,
Okay.
Kukrit Pramoj,
Okay.
and he talked about Chairman Mao Zedong's take on Watergate.
Okay.
And according to Pramoj,
Yeah.
Mao felt that Watergate was a result of too much freedom of political expression in the United States.
Wow, talk about a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, though, given Mao's leadership style.
Right. For someone like Mao who really valued control and order above everything else,
Yeah.
the chaos and upheaval of Watergate must have seemed like,
Right.
validation of his own authoritarian approach.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how Watergate was like this Rorschach test
It really was.
for different political ideologies.
Uh-huh.
Right? Some saw it as proof of democracy's weaknesses,
Yeah.
while others saw it as a demonstration of its strengths.
A real mixed bag of reactions.
Exactly. So what about leaders who were more aligned with the U.S.? How did they react?
Well, Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, who was known for his sharp political insights,
Yeah.
expressed concern that Watergate would weaken U.S. involvement in global affairs,
Okay.
particularly in Southeast Asia.
Interesting.
He worried that if the U.S. turned inward to deal with its own problems,
Right.
it could create a power vacuum in the region.
I mean, that seems like a legitimate concern, given how important Southeast Asia was strategically at the time.
Absolutely. Lee Kuan Yew understood that American power was important for keeping things balanced in the region,
Uh-huh.
and he saw Watergate as a potential threat to that balance.
Right. It's like all of a sudden the U.S. might be unreliable.
Exactly.
So were there any leaders who saw a positive side to how the U.S. handled Watergate?
Yes, actually, Prime Minister Takeo Miki of Japan,
Okay.
who was a strong U.S. ally,
Mm-hmm.
he actually praised the American system
Oh, wow.
for being able to uncover and deal with corruption even at the highest levels.
Interesting.
He saw Watergate as proof that democratic institutions could work.
So instead of being turned off by the scandal, he saw it as a sign that the American system could fix itself.
Exactly. Miki was impressed by the role of the free press, the independent courts,
Uh-huh.
and the system of checks and balances in uncovering the truth
Yeah.
and holding those responsible accountable.
That's a really interesting perspective. It shows that even during a major crisis, some people still believed in American democracy.
It's encouraging, isn't it?
It is, but not all the reactions were quite so optimistic, right?
That's true. We found a quote from an unnamed Kenyan official,
Okay.
and he criticized Nixon for being too distracted by Watergate
Right.
to effectively address the needs and concerns of Africa.
Right. So while some saw Watergate as just an American problem,
Yeah.
others felt it had a direct impact on their own countries.
Exactly. It really highlights how interconnected things are.
Right.
Domestic and foreign policy are never truly separate.
Yeah.
What happens in one country can affect the whole world.
Absolutely. And for some countries, Watergate became a symbol of American hypocrisy,
Right.
or a sign that the U.S. was losing its focus on global leadership.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how some saw it.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have
From the break-in itself
Uh-huh.
to the investigation,
the cover-up
the cover-up, the
of
tapes,
resignation.
the resignation, the global fallout.
It's been quite a journey.
It's been a real deep dive.
It has, and what amazes me is that even after all these years,
I know.
Watergate continues to fascinate us.
It's a scandal that just keeps on giving, right?
It really does.
And, despite everything we've learned, there's still that one nagging question.
That's right.
What was the real motive
The motive, the big why,
behind the Watergate break-in?
it remains a mystery.
Was it the Castro connection?
Was it?
Was it about Larry O'Brien?
Maybe.
Was it about gathering intel on political rivals?
Who knows?
We've looked at the theories,
We've examined them all.
but none of them fully explain everything.
It's true.
And maybe we'll never know the full story.
Maybe not, but that's part of what keeps history so interesting, right?
Absolutely. That search for answers, the piecing together of the puzzle.
That's a puzzle.
It's part of what makes exploring history so rewarding.
It is.
And Watergate, with all its layers of intrigue,
Uh-huh.
its cast of characters,
Yeah.
and its enduring mysteries,
Enduring mysteries.
I think it'll probably continue to fascinate historians
And armchair detectives.
and armchair detectives,
For years to come.
for years to come. And it's a story that reminds us that power can corrupt,
That's right.
truth can be elusive,
It can be.
and that vigilance is the price of liberty.
Powerful words.
It's a story that, even decades later,
Decades later.
still has the power to teach us
It does.
about democracy,
About accountability.
and the importance of a free press.
The importance of a free press. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Watergate.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a fascinating journey, and until next time,
Until next time,
keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking the truth,
the truth.
wherever it may lead.
That's what it's all about.